I started, I had no idea how to homeschool. So I started interviewing homeschooling families. What have I learned? All right. My name's Cheryl, and I'm probably a lot like you, a hesitant homeschooler. I never imagined I would be homeschooling my kids, but I knew that the traditional school system was not right for us. In 2023, I started a podcast to learn everything I could about homeschooling by interviewing, by now, over 100 homeschooling families. What I discovered inspired me to leave my government job, bye-bye pension, and fully embrace homeschooling. So now I'm here to share with you everything I have learned so that you can homeschool with confidence and ease. All right, let's break it down. What I've learned from interviewing homeschooling families over the last 2 years. So first and foremost is the mindset and philosophy behind homeschooling. Like, I know, yada, 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 that sounds so mumbo jumbo, like you need to be a master yogi to understand this. But listen, it's actually very simple. Homeschool doesn't need to look like traditional school. It doesn't need to be Monday through Friday from 8 to 3. Learning happens everywhere, every day. Your everyday life is curriculum, okay? You should be following your child's interests, see what sparks their curiosity, what discussions come up, what questions they ask, what books they enjoy reading. I mean, there's documentaries, videos, hands-on projects. There's just so many more beautiful ways to learn and to have a childhood and to have a relationship with your child than what we view as normal in this society. So when I say the mindset, I really mean like understand that your kids are in the institution of the education system while you are in the institution, most likely, of some corporation or government, and it's by design. That you're apart all day, that they're there learning one thing and you're there doing your thing, and the families are not together. This is actually a bogus idea. Like, if somebody said this to you in the 1600s, the 1800s, and even the early 1900s, just 100 years ago, people would think you're crazy that you send your kids off to strangers all day to learn you don't even know what. I mean, it's bizarre. The whole education system was created for one purpose, and that purpose was to create the obedient worker that can do the job, smart enough to do the job, but not smart enough to question it or become a competitor. All right, that is why the Rockefellers invested millions of dollars into the education system. And in exchange, hey, we're just gonna put a few people on the board of your education system so we can like monitor what you're teaching all those kids, and yeah, great, we got this. So we really have to think about that, and we have to start becoming angry that they've done this to our families. So when I talk about mindset, it's not just, like becoming Zen. It's like, no, I'm kind of mad. Like, you're breaking up our family on purpose. Like, and there's a lot of reasons behind that, but I don't know. We might have to get into like a conspiracy podcast for that. But just know that even the women's movement, putting women into the workforce, it's doubling the tax base. It's getting moms out of the home and kids into this government institution even earlier on. It is all by design. So break free. Break free from the design. You might feel, they did a great job making you feel like you were some social justice warrior, burning bras to get out there and work for liberation, right? So that you can just work for a different man or a woman. Somebody else, instead of being home with your kids, nurturing them, watching them grow, forming relationships, learning right alongside with them, being there to even cook your family like really good food that's going to make them healthy and thrive, versus sending them off to school where they're just going to get some red dye 40 in their and high fructose corn syrup in their breakfast and in their lunch and in all their snacks. All right, so the mindset. You've got to start getting angry. But don't be too angry. You can laugh about it too. All right, so really following our child's interests at what sparks their curiosity is really the best way to learn. The fact that we think all kids should know the same thing at the same age and like taught that from a desk, it's ridiculous. And the fact that we then test them on it, it's even more ridiculous. So just getting into the mindset that, this is about letting your child explore the world, finding what what they are intrigued by, and then going with them along for that ride. Flexibility is key. You can skip days or even months if you need to when you're homeschooling. You can homeschool during evenings, weekends, summers, holidays. It doesn't matter. You can homeschool from anywhere. You could get on a bus and drive across country, and that whole trip is going to be your homeschooling. So you really have to start thinking outside the box of the traditional box that they've kept us in and kind of like suffocated us in. We're kind of stuffed in there. I was in there. I worked for the government for 16 years, and I was in a cubicle all day while my son was in a daycare all day. And let me tell you, when you finally break out of those chains, it is so freeing. And sure, there are hard days. I say to my kids all the time, I miss just getting a 15-minute break twice a day and a half-hour lunch. I could listen to podcasts. Yeah, those days were nice. You just paid someone else to watch your kid. Or, hey, if they're in school, you're already paying the taxes. It's free. Okay, I digress. It's better with them home, I promise. The smiles, the hugs, the kisses, the bonding that you miss when you're at work and they're at school. There's nothing better than just getting a hug from your kid like 30 times a day. All right, maybe when they're older, they don't hug you 30 times a day, but the little ones do. And there's just nothing better than that. Society has tried to steal that from us. So other things that I've learned from interviewing my homeschooling families is creating a loose schedule. That's the best way to do it. You might get up and eat breakfast together every day, start with reading a book or something, but you kind of just let the day take you where it's going to go. These have been some of the best tidbits because you really feel like you need to replicate school at home or you're failing, but you don't want it to look anything like school, I promise. Focus on the goals that you have for your child. So sit down with your spouse or your kid and write down what your goals are. Do you want your kid to be college bound, an entrepreneur, a lifelong learner, someone that loves reading? Think about really the goals that you have. Do you want them to be self-sufficient? Do you want them to be inventing things? You really want to figure out why you're educating your child at all. Like, what's the point of this? What is the point of teaching you multiplication? Do you need to know it? Do you need to know it by memorization, or do you need to just understand the concept? The periodic table of elements. Are you going to be a chemist? Do you need to have it all memorized, or do you need to just know how to find that information and know why it exists and what it all does? All right. So that knowing your goal will really help you when you're picking subjects to explore with your kids. Teach your kids. And you really want to make sure that you teach your kids how to learn, how to ask good questions, how to research, how to explore topics independently. For instance, a couple hours ago, my son had his remote control car out, and of course the thing is broken again. But a huge part of his education has been taking that thing apart and finding out why it's broken and fixing it, ordering parts, fixing it, and putting it back together. I mean, that's been so much. He was just taking it all apart. My kitchen is destroyed. There's screws everywhere. But you know what? He's learning every step of the way. So it's really understanding that little things like this, even cooking together, anything has so much value in their life long term. It's just really important to take a step back and think about how much learning goes into just your day-to-day living together. Homeschooling is not about perfection. It's about keeping your kids safe, loved, and engaged, okay? I've got some practical tips too. For instance, multi-age learning. If you caught my video about how to teach your kids that are all multiple ages without feeling too overwhelmed, this was definitely in there. And go check out that video if you haven't watched it yet. But using family style learning for subjects like history, science, art, with different levels of difficulty for each child is super helpful. Also a time saver. Now, one of the best tips I got from one of my guests was rotating toys and activities for the younger children to keep them engaged while you're working with the older ones, or cooking dinner, or doing dishes, or doing the laundry, or scrolling Instagram. or watching this video. So take all your toys and put them into bins and label the bins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And every day that you're busy with doing something else, you take out a bin, and it's going to seem like Christmas to that child. I also have some other really cool tips without turning the TV on for your kid, but stay tuned for that. Vetted book lists. You can use Read Aloud Revival is an awesome resource. I've had Sarah Mackenzie on my podcast, and she has book lists for days. You can choose book lists based on the season that we're in, the holiday that's coming up, what your child's interests are, their age, what kind of genres they like, and you can actually use apps from your library to order those books from the book lists to go right to your library, and they will notify you when they're all ready for pickup. And there you go, easy peasy. You can also use apps like the Libby app if you wanted to listen to a book aloud or just read it from your Kindle. But that has been a huge part of our homeschooling. I go to the Read Aloud Revival website and order the books, and they've all been vetted. They're amazing books. I mean, some like literally made me cry. And I've also learned more from these books than I did my entire career of public schooling. The Tuttle Twins books are also amazing. I can link them in the show's description too, because those are like, you really want your kids to know about liberty, freedom, the Constitution, how our government is supposed to work versus how it works. Using conversation with your child as the curriculum. This is one of my favorite recommendations. You can just have conversations with your child and they learn so much, and it's relevant to what's going on in their world. So for instance, we were outside yesterday. It's snowing here in upstate New York, and it was like, all right, everyone's going a little bit nuts in the house. Let's get outside. So it's cold out. It takes us like 45 minutes for everybody to get suited up, to get out there. And my son just found a digital camera that my husband had from like 20 years ago. So he's got the digital camera on, and we're outside, and we're like, hey, let's look up the tracks from animals, because in the snow you can see the animal tracks like way better than you can any other time of year. So he took his camera and was taking pictures of all these different tracks, up and down the driveway. We went into the woods a little bit, and then we have a book called it's called Who Pooped in the Park, but it's adorable. It is all about the animal tracks and their scats. And so he was able to pull up the pictures and identify what animals, were roaming through our yard while we were none the wiser. And it was really an awesome learning experience. So we were just having that conversation about what this could be, what that could be. And he's learning so much in that process. And there are so many times throughout the day that just his question or me asking a question sparks a whole conversation that we wouldn't have had if I were in my cubicle, in my government job, and he was at school. All right. Ooh, this is a good one. Earning college credits in high school. This is amazing. Instead of paying college prices when your kid's in college, you can earn a lot of those credits while they're still technically high school students. They can do it right from home, online, and it's way cheaper, if not free. So definitely look into that. I will link videos in the future I will do videos in the future that really get into the online schooling and how to get your diploma as a homeschooler. So be sure to subscribe, like, and tap that bell for notifications so that you do not miss those videos. All right, this might be a controversial one, but it was recommended to me to use AI to get curriculum advice for your child's interests, learning style, and personality. I, for one, still think AI is probably the devil. But the devil's really helpful sometimes because it's so awesome. I can just type into ChatGPT. I have a hyper 6-year-old boy who loves four-wheelers and trucks and mechanics, and I want to teach him math or reading or spelling. And it will pull up all sorts of curriculum or different projects I can do with him on the subject with his learning style in mind. AI might want to also know, your blood type and DNA, but it can be really helpful in all of this stuff. Just don't let it steal your soul. Just give them very, very little bit of information. They already have all that information anyway. hslda.org. You are going to want to know this website if you are thinking about homeschooling. hslda.org, which I can also link in the show's description, is where you get all of your state's requirements for homeschooling. So each state is different. I'm in New York. It is one of the strictest states for homeschooling requirements and reporting. But that said, it's not that hard. You can still do it. I'll do a future video on how I write the reports for my son and will soon be my daughter in New York State. And it's going to be harder here than in any other state. So if I can do it, I promise you can do it too. We have to incorporate state mandated subjects like, for instance, high school in New York, you have to report on science, phys ed, English, social studies, math, art or music, health, and 324 hours of electives. But there are easy ways to do that. And also you can layer them on top of each other. So for instance, maybe reading and health and science all kind of layer on top of each other. Yeah, hslda.org is going to be where you get all the requirements that you need to meet in order to stay in compliance. All right, required testing. You can do these tests at home. I think there are required tests in your high school years for some states. Again, hslda.org will let you know if you are required to turn in those exams, but they can be taken at home and then mailed in. So there's really no reason to get too hyper about it. We can keep a very lax homeschool with the child leading us on what they find interesting, important, and making sense to their world. For college-bound students, you just want to make sure that they're equipped for preparing for the SATs, the ACTs. You want to create transcripts. Again, there's hslda.org will help you out with that. You can become a member, or there's lots of free resources on that website as well. I have an episode with Lee where she discusses how she got her high schooler graduated. I have many episodes. That's just the one that comes to my mind. And I can do a future video as well on exactly what you need your transcripts to look like if you do have a college-bound student. All right, methods and approaches. Oh, there are so many different methods to homeschooling. I've had some of the most awesome conversations with my guests about different ways you can homeschool. And that's initially why I started the podcast. I was like, I don't know anything about homeschooling. Like, people would talk about Charlotte Mason or classical. I'm like, I don't even know what to pick. Like, someone needs to explain this to me. I'm not going to read books about all of them, okay? I just want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. All right, so let's get into a little bit about each one. And then I'm going to do a future video on really what the in-depth day-to-day would look like for each one. But you've got Charlotte Mason, which is very focused on living books. And what I mean by living books is those engaging, well-written books. There's narration, nature, all that good stuff. Another form is classical. If you are a classical learner, you are really concentrating on grammar, logic, and rhetoric. That doesn't sound fun to me, but you know what? There are people out there that do find that enjoyable. Game schooling. Now, this is one that we love. So, like I said, I will be doing a future video on games that you can pick for each subject and how you can pick what ones your kids will absolutely love. But using board games, card games, role-playing games as tools for learning is so fun. Yes, game schooling is a thing. This engages the children through play and develops their academic, social, and critical thinking skills. All right, you've probably heard of this one, unschooling. We just want to throw school right out. We shouldn't even put school in the title of unschooling. That's how unschool we want it to be. This is child-led and interest-driven learning without a formal curriculum. So it relies on life experience, exploration, and natural curiosity as the primary tools for education. This one I love. It sounds like really hard work because you're like constantly on, but it's not like you would expect. It's really beautiful. All right, number 5 would be a Montessori style of homeschooling. This emphasizes hands-on, self-paced learning. It encourages independence, respect for the child's interests, and practical life skills. Number 6 would be a Waldorf style of homeschooling. This focuses on creativity, imagination, and holistic development. Number 7, unit studies. I love unit studies because they're short in duration. You don't have like a curriculum for the year and it doesn't seem so daunting. You've got like just this little bit to get through, and it's always on an interesting topic. You pick the topic. What is it? What do you want to learn about? You want to learn about the moon? Learn about the moon. You want to learn about the Hudson River? Don't do that. I'm going to write a unit study on the Hudson River. I have driven over this thing 1,000 times in my life or more, and like never knew any history of the Hudson River. And lo and behold, there's a lot of history there. So unit studies are just awesome. They integrate multiple subjects around a central theme or topic, encouraging hands-on projects, field trips, and interdisciplinary learning. Okay, number 8 would be eclectic style of homeschool. This is a customized approach. It blends methods and resources to suit your family's needs. We'll get into that into a later video. Traditional or school at home. This is what you don't want. You don't want this, but you know what? It's got to be on there. It is a style of homeschooling, and so many people do it. Replicating school. Just replicate. Just take the school building and put it in your living room. All right, this mimics the conventional school environment at home with textbooks, workbooks, and a set schedule. Don't do this one. Don't. All right, number 10 is project-based learning. This centers on student-driven projects that address real-world problems or questions. It encourages creativity, collaboration, and practical application and knowledge. We definitely integrate projects. And number 11, road schooling or world schooling. This one's super cool. I have had a couple of guests on my podcast that talked about their world schooling experiences. So they incorporate travel and exploration as their primary method of education. They focus on multicultural immersion, geography, and history through real life experiences. One episode in particular that I've had is the Unhustle Bustle episode with Jen Gossett, and they sold everything to buy a bus, and they just drive around the United States living in a bus and experiencing life. Another world schooler that I had the privilege of talking to, they just see where the next cheapest flight is and go. Like, they were living on a raft, I think, in the Amazon, in the water. Does that make sense? Is there water in the Amazon? Yeah, just gotta be. All right. But these episodes are so intriguing to me. I think I'll start small, like camp schooling. We're just gonna go camping for a week. And I bought a tent a couple months ago, and we're gonna do that. We're not selling the house for a bus just yet. All right, number 12 here is Reggio Emilia. I haven't talked to anybody that's done this. Child-led and project-based, emphasizing collaboration. They value art, sensory experiences, and document the learning process. I haven't talked to anybody that has done that one. It's not popular. Game schooling, as I already mentioned, and outdoor nature-based learning. So just centers around outdoor activities like hiking, gardening, environmental studies. This promotes physical activity and a connection with nature. These are pretty much all the ways and styles that people homeschool, and then a lot of people just integrate what works for them. So you might take a couple different ones and blend them together and just find what works for your family. A couple of tidbits that I've gotten from some of my favorite guests on the show have been to don't hesitate to switch your curriculum. If you have something that's not working, just let it go. If like your kid hates it, you hate it, just let it go. You can look for curriculum with secondhand options like in Facebook groups. And that's another great resource. Just go onto Facebook, find groups in your area that are homeschooling and read through the comments, see where there's meetups, try different ones. You're probably not gonna like the first one or the second one. You'll find one that has people that you align with and kids that you want your children to grow up with. There are lots of online learning resources, so don't feel that you have to know everything. You can definitely use online programs like the Tuttle Twins Academy, Neoscience, Brain Pop, Generation Genius, Curiosity Stream, OutSchool, True North Academy, School of Humanity, Flip Flop Spanish, Treehouse Schoolhouse. Outdoor Anthony's Nature Journal, Write on Web for writing courses, Write Stories is another writing program, Flow State Education for math, Triad Math. There's so many. Oh my gosh, I can link them all for you, but I'm just here to say that you do not need to know everything in order to teach your child everything. You just have to be there to teach them and guide them. You have to be there to teach them how to learn and guide them. And socialization, like that whole thing is like ridiculous. Socialization and community. All right, we have all been told that homeschoolers are weird and don't know how to socialize. But I'm here to tell you it's not true. Look, they look pretty normal. They sound normal. Who's really normal anyway? Like, your kid's gonna be weird if you're weird. That's just what it is. We actually joined Boy Scouts, and as we were leaving, my husband and I were like, I think we're kind of the most normal people here. So the tables have turned. The public schoolers are weird. They're dressing like cats and using litter boxes. So I'll just leave that at that. But my suggestion would be to go on Facebook and find some groups in your area and just see what options are there. Chances are they have groups for local meetups at parks, or maybe someone's house, or co-ops, or field trips. Contact your local library and see if they have any meetups for homeschoolers. There are really tons of options. And you might not find one that fits you and your family and aligns with your values right away, or ones where you like the parents or like the children, but that's okay. There's probably more popping up. And if there isn't one, start your own. So Facebook groups have been awesome for this. Thanks, Mark Zuckerberg. Another great tip I've gotten is utilizing the older children from homeschooling families to nanny or tutor kids. It's just like, this is a community. We're all here to help each other. So keep that in mind as you set out on this homeschooling journey. You might, like I did, start homeschooling, and then you start a garden, and then you get chickens, and then you are changing out all the products in your house for ones that don't have toxins in them. Shampoo, soap, dish detergent, laundry detergent, lotions, your clothes. You're getting, all organic cotton clothing and sheets. Oh, the list goes on. Then before you know it, you've got bees and you're making honey, you're tapping maple trees for syrup and getting a cow. So this is all the learning. Like, this is the schooling. Honestly, I think about it all the time. It is up to us to keep our kids in the know about how to be self-sufficient. We can joke and say that we'll never need to know this information, but I mean, there's been wildfires and hurricanes and all completely happening naturally, I am sure. But with that, I mean, if you don't have access to heat or water or shelter for days and days on end, do you know how to survive? Are you able to do that? Are your kids equipped for that? And even if hopefully none of that happens to you, we don't know what the future is going to bring for our kids and their kids and their kids. It is our job to teach our kids how to be self-sufficient. It is like our duty to teach our kids how to be self-sufficient. Our grandparents knew it, and our parents just kind of, a lot of them let it fall by the wayside, and it's our job to make sure we can equip our kids with what they need. All right. Oh, here's some cool tips on alternatives to screen time. Now, my kids are in front of the screen right now, so I'm not saying that I do everything perfectly, but I do have alternatives to screen time that I have used, and they are awesome. My son loves kids podcasts. Okay, so Kids Storytime Favorites is an awesome podcast. It's a mom and her daughter who read books, pretty common books that you would have around the house or can easily get for a couple bucks from Amazon or wherever. thrift books or just get from the library. And it's a mom and her 6-year-old daughter reading the story, and they ding a bell every time you turn the page. So this is awesome if I'm working with another child or doing some work around the house or recording a podcast, to have my son listen to the book and then turn the pages as he hears the bell. And this also is helping him read and just hear story. Audiobooks. The Libby app is awesome for audiobooks. My son listens to the Boxcar Children series all the time. So the Libby app, Libby, that's an awesome resource. And little outdoor journaling and stuff. Outdoor Anthony is a guy who started a channel all about nature, just like the Treehouse Schoolhouse Nature Study. Both of them are awesome for just resources with what to do with your kids in nature. And I mean, you can always use ChatGPT. Ask them, it's snowing out here, or we have snow, it's 20 degrees. What are some activities I can do? I mean, that might send you on a little scavenger hunt for, a stick longer than your arm, 3 trees that are taller than your house in a row, or, just rabbit tracks. And you go on these little scavenger hunts and you'll just be floored with how much you've learned in just that day. So as we round up, some final takeaways that I would just like to leave you with. Homeschooling, it doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Listen, moms and dads, the urge to want to compare where your child is to another child, his or her age, is going to be natural. But please push those feelings aside. My son is 6 and he's not yet reading on his own. And yeah, we go places where 6-year-olds that are in school are reading, or other homeschooled 6-year-olds are reading, or his cousins are telling him that they could read by 6. But you know what? You have to think about what you are building with your child. And I wouldn't look at you and ask you what age you learned how to read, just like you wouldn't look at me and ask me what age I learned how to walk. It's just not relevant when we're older. We really want to foster the love of story, which sparks imagination, creativity, and really gets them apathy and empathy for others, okay? So that's the important part. Reading to your child is the important part. 20 minutes a day, that's all it takes. And you're gonna build so much more than you pushing them to read on their own, okay? Because that's gonna come to them. When the synapses in their brain have formed, it's gonna click. Just like riding a bike, just like tying your shoe. But if they're not there yet, don't push it, okay? So, and that's the same with any subject. What one child is doing does not mean another child is supposed to be doing the same thing. They're different people with different backgrounds, different interests, different genes, different experiences in life. So they're not going to be the same. And the fact that we think they should, and we stick them in a school building and then test them on it, is just ridiculous, okay? So I know that you're comparing because you want to make sure your child's not falling short, but I promise you they're not falling short. You love them and you're never going to let that happen, but it doesn't happen with forcing them to memorize something, okay? You're going to have mistakes and unproductive days, but that's all part of the process. Don't dwell on it. You're going to have days where the TV was on for so long and oh my God, their brain just melted. Like you literally, they weigh less because their brains melted away. No, a lot of people don't have TV on in their house. Well, I do, all right? I grew up on it. It's just like a thing that was always there. So there is TV in our household, but you know what? If it's bothering me a lot, I make changes or put guidelines around it. TV is only going to be allowed for this many hours, or these are the only shows I will be letting you watch, which, by the way, Wild Kratts, awesome show, and The Magic School Bus, awesome shows. And Alpha Blocks is great for the little ones. But yeah, if you allow TV, don't beat yourself up if the TV's been on. Set parameters if it's really bothering you. And all of these mistakes and unproductive days, they're just part of the learning process. You're growing together. You're learning how to homeschool just as much as they're learning how to be students, right? But it just doesn't have to look like school, and make sure that it doesn't. Focus on building a safe, loving, and engaging environment for your children. And what does that look like? It looks like reading books together. It looks like going outside together. It's as simple as that. Remember, it's not about doing everything right. It's about doing what's right for your family. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video useful at all, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification button so that you don't miss my upcoming content. I have awesome episodes coming up all about how to game school, what each style of homeschooling would actually look like in your everyday life. You do not want to miss these. And don't forget to check out my podcast, The Homeschool How To, for even more insights from the over 100 homeschooling families that I've interviewed over the last 2 years. I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for your love of the next generation.